Let's go live button. So we have to wait for the stream to get fired up across the internet. It usually takes a second to get moving on YouTube. YouTube's just a little bit slower than some of the other platforms. So once it is alive and well, we'll get rocking and rolling, and it looks like we are. So let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We have judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice, and it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and I to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. And so that's why we started this program called Watching the Watchers, so that together we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency back down upon our very system with the hope of encouraging some meaningful change. We're very grateful that you are here and with us today because we have a lot to get into. We're going to be spending a lot of time talking about Robinhood and this whole GameStop stock debacle. Stonks, I think, is what the popular vernacular is today on the internet. We're going to talk about the CEO, Vlad Tenez. He had an interview yesterday on CNBC, and it was a little bit of a squirrely interview. He wasn't really answering much of anything. And now they're facing a class action lawsuit on behalf of a number of individuals who are saying that what Robinhood did to limit the trades is a violation of the law. We're going to get into that. There's another lawsuit that Robinhood is facing in a different place in Illinois. So they're just sort of getting it from all different angles, and we want to break that down and discuss what that might mean for them. We've also got some feedback from a Columbia Law School professor, a guy by the name of John Coffey, who is weighing in and discussing some of the SEC rules, along with another individual who identified a section, a subsection of the Securities and Exchange Act that might address it. And so, there's a lot going on with Robinhood. There's no question about it. But we're going to dive into it. It's going to be a little bit of heavy lifting because we're talking about some civil law. We're talking about SEC rules, not typically the most sexy stuff out there in the legal world, but it still is pretty important right now. I think a lot of retail investors, a lot of people who are unfamiliar with the law are going to be diving into this, and we want to make sure that everybody does so with a clear understanding of what is at least being discussed out there in the world, because we're also hearing that the Senate Banking Chairperson, a guy by the name of Senator Sherrod Brown, is indicating that Congress is going to be holding some hearings on this. We know that the SEC is investigating or monitoring the situation. So there's a lot of tumultuous activity going on, and there's some legal consequences and ramifications as a result. Before we dive into any of that, I want to get started by talking about this guy, Kevin Clinesmith, who was a former FBI lawyer, and he got sentenced today. We want to tell you about what his sentence was. This was a guy who was involved in the early 2016, even before that, the investigation into the Trump campaign while he was sort of transitioning into the White House. He was under investigation, led to a lot of the Mueller debacle, the first impeachment. And so he finally got sentenced today. We want to tell you what that looks like. And then we got to talk about Subway sandwiches. Can you believe this? Subway sandwiches. Is anything sacred anymore? Is everybody getting sued for everything in this country, including Subway? Well, as a matter of fact, they are. What is in their tuna sandwiches? We're going to figure that out and have a little bit of fun as we wrap up the program this lovely Friday. And before we get started, a couple quick things I want to point out. If you're not a regular of the program, now's a good time to subscribe. We go live at this time every single weekday, every day of the week, minus the weekends. We'd love to have you here. A like, a thumbs up, a subscribe, a comment. Invite your friend or family member to come and join us as we go live so that they can participate. It's a lot of fun. If you're not a regular, we are also going to be uploading the slides. So the way that the program works is I'm going to go through a presentation. We're going to look at some lawsuits. I've got the actual primary source documents on a lot of this stuff. I want to show you what's going on, a little bit behind the scenes on how the legal system is operating and working. If you want a copy of those slides, they're available for you, and you can grab them over on our platform called Locals. And the web address there is watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can get a copy of the slides, free copy of my book, Beginning to Winning. You can grab a copy of our existence templates. You can also get the impeachment party documents because we're gearing up for an impeachment party coming up soon, early in February. Want to make sure that you have all of that and available over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. So check that out. As always, want to thank Miss Faith for helping me prep the show, and Mr. Ma, who's going to be moderating the chat for us today. Thank you very much to you both. So let's get started. I want to start with the criminal law first. So it's kind of a little more sexy stuff, and we'll get that out of the way. Then we're going to dive into the civil world just a little bit. And the story comes over from the Washington Post. I also posted this on Twitter and Locals. A story from the Epoch Times over from a guy named Ivan. And, this has sort of been permeating throughout the internet. This story of this guy, Kevin Clinesmith. He was an ex-FBI lawyer, according to the Washington Post, and he's avoiding prison after admitting that he doctored an email in an investigation into the Trump's 2016 campaign. And the way I want to break this up is the story here sort of is jarbled up. And so I separated it out. I want to look at some background facts. What did this guy do? What's the allegation here? We'll look at what the defense says. What did his defense attorney say? Then we'll take a look at the prosecutor and say what the prosecutor said about this. And then we'll see what the judge concluded. So we're kind of going to look at it from all angles, and then you can come to the conclusion as to whether or not this final sentence was in fact justified. So let's start at the top. We don't have any formal documents on this yet because he just got sentenced today, and the court hasn't, as far as I know, as far as I found, they haven't drafted the minute entries or the final concluding documents. But the story covers a lot of it and gives us some good background. So let's dive in. Once again, over from the Washington Post, written by a guy named Matt Zapotowski, says here, the former FBI lawyer who admitted to doctoring an email that other officials relied on to justify secret surveillance of former Trump campaign advisor was sentenced on Friday to 12 months of probation. So no time behind bars. So this is pretty important. When you are a part of a government entity, and you want justification to get an arrest warrant or to, draft a subpoena or to do anything really in court, and you're doing it sort of surreptitiously, you're doing it under the radar, you got to go to a judge, and the judge has to grant permission to do some of this stuff. And so what they're saying here is that this Clinesmith fella is altered an email in a way that sort of escaped the scrutiny of the courts and allowed an investigation to go forward without following the regular, fair, legitimate due process that should have been entitled. So prosecutors here are asking that Kevin Smith, they wanted him to spend several months in prison for his crime, but his attorney said probation would be more appropriate. He pled guilty last summer to altering an email that one of his colleagues used in preparing an application to surreptitiously monitor the former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page during the Bureau's 2016 investigation into election interference. So it sounds minor, but he altered an email, but it was used as justification. That fraudulent email was the entire justification for the application to monitor Carter Page. And so that's a pretty big deal. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg said that Clinesmith's conduct had undermined the integrity of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISA court, which approved the FBI's flawed applications to surveil Page. Courts all over the country rely on representations from the government. We expect them to be correct, said Judge Boasberg. So once again, he faked an email, modified an email, submitted that email. Ultimately, it got submitted to somebody else in the administration or in the FBI who submitted it to the FISA court. Based on flawed applications, it was granted. That authorized the investigation of Carter Page. So arguably, had he not done that, the FISA court would not have granted that and justified the surveillance. It's one argument. Let's take a look at some of the underlying facts just to flesh this out and frame this out a bit. It says here, the basic facts are not in dispute, though prosecutors and defense attorneys seem to disagree on what motivated Clinesmith and how sinister his actions were. Clinesmith was an FBI attorney. He was helping to investigate the Russia investigation, and in June 2017, he was asked to clarify whether Carter Page, was ever a source for the CIA. That was important because the FBI, with the approval of the FISA court, had been surveilling Page as a possible agent of foreign government. They were applying for permission to keep that surveillance going. If Page was a CIA source, though, that would have had to have been disclosed to the court, as it would raise significant questions about whether he should be tracked as a possible foreign agent. Page had provided information to the CIA as an operational contact, and when Clinesmith sought clarity, a CIA liaison told him as much, using jargon and pointing to documents that made his role clear. But according to Clinesmith lawyers, Clinesmith believed that Page was not a direct source, but rather a subsource of the agency. And, this is Basically what happened was there was a modification of an email. Basically, when I think we have it later on in the slides, but he wrote not a source on there, and so it kind of pulled this document and this email outside of the regular process, which allowed the FISA court to go and rule it, and then they ruled on a falsified underlying application from the FBI based in part on Clinesmith's emails. So what does the defense say about this? Let's sort of look at this in a light most favorable to Clinesmith. He was the one manipulating these documents that led to the investigation. Well, what are they saying about him? It's pretty good defense because he got a pretty light sentence, as we saw. Here it is. Justin Schur, Clinesmith's lawyer, argued that probation was in fact appropriate. He said that Clinesmith had lived a life in service of others. He was raised on a farm in Michigan, was the first family to go to college, inspired to work in national security after 9/11. He wrote in a court filing, and this was probably a sentencing memorandum. And this is important to know. This is a big part of practicing criminal law, which is why I wanted to really talk about this story. His lawyers did a good job. This is all called mitigation. Expecting his first child, a son, in March. They're acknowledging here he made a grievous mistake in altering the email. He did so thinking wrongly that the information that he was adding was accurate. He argued that Clinesmith made the move because of intense stress that came with the Russia investigation and because he was trying to help his mom as she dealt with Alzheimer's disease. While there is no satisfactory answer, any explanation must start with considerable pressure he was under at the time, both at work and in his personal life. So that's pretty good lawyering. That's called mitigation. And anytime you are being represented by a defense attorney, it's a good idea to start thinking about that. Mitigation is where you're talking not so much about the underlying offense. You can see in this memorandum, I don't have a copy of the memorandum, but you can see the quotes are being pulled from that. A sentencing memorandum, we know that Clinesmith already pled guilty last summer. So there's no question about whether or not he is admitting guilt. The only question at this point in time, at this particular day, was what should the penalty be? And so when that happens, somebody pled guilty. Both sides will present their case in the form of sentencing memorandums. In this case, the government was asking for something, and we're reviewing now what Clinesmith's attorney, Justin Schur, was requesting on behalf of his client. And he went through the list in service of others. He's really framing him, and I've talked about this before, as a person who helps little old ladies cross the street, as somebody who rescues stranded puppies who are stuck on the side of the road, somebody who is just an all-around saint and outstanding individual to have in society. Says that he was raised on a farm in Michigan, first person in his family to go to college, wanted to get involved in national security after 9/11. He's got a son coming in March. We can't throw him in jail or in prison. He's got a son coming. He is acknowledging his mistake. He's recognizing that this was a problem. He thought it was accurate. He had, it was just a simple misunderstanding. And now he was dealing with his mom, who also dealt with Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so basically throwing everything at the wall. And, some people have been critical about defense attorneys who take this approach. Many people were very critical of another defense attorney that we covered on this show. Can't remember the guy's name, but he was the person who was representing one of the Capitol Hill protesters or rioters or insurrectionists or however you want to categorize that. The person who was literally walking out of the Capitol building with a podium on his shoulder. Remember that? He was sort of walking out and he was smiling. Hey, I got a podium. I'm in control of the government now. As he was walking out the door, well, he got arrested and indicted, and he was a subject of an ongoing criminal case. And his attorney came out in front and was giving an interview to the press, and the press said, hey, is your case difficult since we have a picture, an admission, it's all over social media, he admitted to it, all of it? And the attorney goes, well, yeah, it's actually a pretty tough case. I'm not a magician, and I can't pull a rabbit out of a hat, right? And everybody was giving him a lot of grief for that. Well, what he was doing there was really framing out this ultimate, mea culpa. I screwed up. Fall on the sword, beg for mercy, and really beef up the mitigation of his case, because sometimes it works. It worked in this case. This is very good mitigation. And they're saying here, his attorney, while there is no satisfactory answer, any explanation must start with the considerable pressure he was under at the time, both at work and his personal life. Schur also wrote that Clinesmith genuinely believed Page had not been a source, even though he was, and doctored the email as part of a, quote, misguided attempt to save himself time and the embarrassment of having to backtrack on his assurance that he had it in writing. He vigorously disputed that Clinesmith had acted out of animus and noted that Clinesmith had separately sent an undoctored copy of the email of the CIA liaison's email to the FBI case agent. His attorney wrote, Clinesmith had initially resisted surveilling Page, rejected surveillance of another Trump campaign advisor, and opposed inserting an FBI source into the Trump campaign. Had Kevin been personally motivated to harm Trump, he never would have done any of those things. And so they're doing a nice job characterizing this as he was doing everything he could, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. He didn't intend to do anything harmful against Donald Trump. He even sent undoctored copies of the emails and all of that. So have mercy. Well, what do the prosecutors say? Let's flip it around. Let's hop on the other side of this because they were asking for prison time. Here's what the prosecutors had to talk about. In arguing that Clinesmith deserved to go to prison, Durham, and if you may remember, John Durham is the guy who is the special prosecutor who's been assigned to investigate this stuff. Durham's team highlighted the anti-Trump text that Clinesmith had sent and argued that it was, quote, plausible that his strong political views and or personal dislike of Trump made him more willing to engage in the fraudulent and unethical conduct to which he has pled guilty. Clinesmith was suspended for 2 weeks over the messages. An FBI agent. 2 weeks. While it is impossible to know with certainty how these views may have affected his offense conduct, the defendant plainly has shown that he did not discharge his important responsibilities at the FBI with professionalism, integrity, objectivity required of a sensitive job position, the prosecutors wrote. The prosecutor's name was Anthony Scarpelli, said that his conduct was, quote, more egregious than that of George Papadopoulos, whose offhand remark at a London bar in May 2016 helped trigger the Russia investigation, and he pled guilty to lying to the FBI, and he was sentenced to 14 days in prison. Okay, but George Papadopoulos was a different case. 14 days. This guy got 0 days. Prosecutors have cast Clinesmith's actions as more nefarious. They advocated for a sentence of incarceration that is at least between the middle and the upper end of what the sentencing guidelines called for. So that would have been probably somewhere between 3 to 6 months in prison. In discussing whether Page was an FBI source with the FBI supervisor, they wrote, Clinesmith recognized that disclosing such a fact would be a terrible footnote because it would mean the FBI had hid information in prior applications. They wrote, Clinesmith's misconduct fueled public distrust of the FBI and the entire FISA program itself. The act of altering the message to change its meaning may seem simple and like a momentary lapse of judgment on the part of the defendant, but the resulting harm is immeasurable. He said he genuinely, adding that Clinesmith's assertion that he genuinely believed Page was not a source was fanciful. So, all right, so he just kind of made it up. Sure, the defense attorney responded and said his career is already, quote, in shambles. He's been unemployed for more than a year. His case has received extensive public attention. Boasberg signaled he was sympathetic to the cost that Clinesmith had already paid, noting he went from being a government lawyer with no public profile to standing in the eye of a media hurricane. And presumably this is the justification for why his fine was only $100. So he got a $100 fee on the penalty as a result of his sentencing. Boasberg also agreed with the prior finding that the Justice Department Inspector General that Clinesmith and other FBI actions were not motivated by political bias. He believed the contention that he thought genuinely but wrongly that the information was accurate. On top of his probation sentence, he's got to perform 400 hours of community service. And this is also interesting. Durham's investigation is ongoing, though it is unclear who beyond Clinesmith, if anyone, might face criminal exposure or what the public findings it may ultimately produce. In the final months, Attorney General Barr appointed Durham as the special counsel, giving him extra legal and political protection from being relieved of his assignment in the Biden administration. So this last paragraph that I clipped here, I think is pretty important because Durham's investigation is not over. And so you can think about this in two different ways. You can look at it from two angles, on the one side, multiple angles, but maybe three even. The first one is, this is just what it sounds like. This guy was trying to do his work. He was under a lot of pressure and he did something stupid. Okay. A lot of people do it. A lot of people have done things incorrectly in their life. It doesn't make them bad people. He was under pressure. Mom had Alzheimer's. He's probably, under the gun of the FBI, probing him to go and investigate this stuff. And he screwed up. He made a mistake. Not a terrible person, as we have seen. There was another article I read over at the Epoch Times where they were saying that they got, I think, 50 or 60 different sentencing letters from other individuals. And so this is also pretty common. You can go out there and find people in your life to go and write letters for you. Say, hey, can you write me a character letter and just let the court know that even though this looks really bad, generally I'm not that bad of a person, right? I do good things. I got a job, a wife, a family, kids, a job, whatever it looks like. So, that was all very well and good. And this may just be a simple case where the judge saw the evidence, saw the allegations, and decided that this felt mostly justified. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I don't like people unnecessarily going to jail or to prison. I think we have too many people in jail and prison as it is. So my instinct is, okay, well, at least we don't have another person in jail. That's one interpretation. Now you could and that's just a sort of a general accept things at face value way to view this whole situation. Another way you can look at it, if you're a little bit more cynical, is that this is the FBI circling the wagons and protecting the FBI. This guy's an ex-FBI lawyer. He was doing stuff that was sort of in alignment with a lot of the other problems we saw with the FBI during this time. Of course, we're talking about Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. We're talking about this entire Russian collusion debacle that's been going on for years and years now. And we haven't spent a lot of time on this show talking about it because this show started after the real crux of that entire investigation was taking place. We were sort of late to the game on that. And so this is a follow-up of that. But it would not surprise me. We see this all the time. We see, cops doing bad things and prosecutors drop the charges or minimize the charges. We covered a case here in Arizona where a police officer was threatening to shoot the mayor. And then another officer said, "You don't mean that. You're not going to shoot the mayor." And he said, "Yes, I do." And then, that public threat basically went nowhere. It went over to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office and they just decided not to pursue charges on that, even though other people around the country are being prosecuted and here in Arizona are being prosecuted for the same stuff. Well, in this case, it was the prosecutor's office who works with the police department very frequently. He got a pass because that officer was a police officer, whereas anybody else in the same situation wouldn't get that same benefit. The FBI here, if you're being cynical, like I typically am, they're looking at one of their own. The U.S. Attorney's Office is looking after one of their own. You could make a connection to the Biden administration or to this change in the administration. It went from a Trump administration to a Biden administration, but I don't think that would be a very fair analysis because this was still being prosecuted by John Durham, who is special counsel and is outside of really the purview of the Biden administration. So, it could just be a situation where the FBI is taking care of one of their own. The judge is recognizing that this person has a background in law enforcement, and the whole thing is sort of being, he's getting a benefit that many other people wouldn't get. Or it could also be a situation where, Durham was offering him a deal in exchange for some more information. We just see this right here in this last paragraph of this article. The investigation is ongoing. It's unclear who beyond Clinesmith, if anyone, might face criminal exposure and what the public findings may ultimately produce. So in these situations, and again, the Durham prosecutors here were in fact asking for prison time. Now, how hard they were asking or how compelling they were, was it whether this was just a sort of shiny object like we talked about yesterday? Oh yeah, we're going to ask for prison time. We know the judges are going to grant it based on what they put in the factual basis, which is the soliloquy that you give before the court, or based on a settlement conference that they may have had with the judge saying that we got to ask for this, but we know the judge isn't going to grant it because they decided that in closed doors, but off the record as a part of a settlement conference. We just don't know. And so it could be a situation where Clinesmith was providing more information over to the Durham special counsel, and in exchange for that information, he got a better deal. We just don't know. But the point here is that this guy got probation, 12 months of probation, 400 hours of community service, and a $100 fine for fraudulently manipulating an email as part of an underlying application by the FBI to go get a FISA warrant to investigate the Trump administration by placing secret sources within the campaign. A year of probation, not even jail. $100 fine. That's a catastrophic type of crime. Okay, this is a lawyer who knows exactly what he's doing, and he intentionally manipulated evidence. In my mind, it's egregious conduct for a lawyer to do that. This is where you see all sorts of problems in criminal law when people bend the rules in order to make their case. You have this person who is part of the prosecution. He's part of the FBI. He's an executive law enforcement agency who's literally altering evidence in order to procedurally move things around through the court. And he gets a slap on the wrist. Meanwhile, we have somebody who posted some memes in 2016 who just got arrested and is facing a potential maximum of 10 years in prison for posting memes on the internet. So Very, very concerning, in my opinion, that the Justice Department is sort of operating this way. Everybody's trying to get their bearings straight on where the Justice Department is going. What types of crimes are they going to be prosecuting? We're seeing a lot of language about domestic violence extremists, homegrown domestic extremists. We're seeing that the SEC is now sort of, shaking the tree a little bit to see what is fallen out of this GameStop stuff. And it's different standards. I will tell you this. In Arizona, if you get charged and convicted with the DUI, guess how many days in jail you get? It starts at one. One for a first offense DUI. You can never have never been charged before, never had a criminal record at all. First offense, if you plead guilty to a DUI, you go to jail for at least a day. Your fines are somewhere around $2,500 to $4,500. Not 100. You don't get 12 months of probation. You go to jail. If your BAC was over a certain level, you could be doing 30 days. 45 days in jail for a first offense DUI. This guy was operating in the national security infrastructure, fraudulently manipulating documents in order to get FISA warrants in order to investigate a political enemy, many people would characterize it. Massively different scale. 2 tiers of justice. One for the police, one for law enforcement, one for everybody else. So it leaves a very bad taste in your mouth, I think, no matter how you look at it. So that's Clinesmith. It's the end of that case. We'll see if Durham comes up with anything else, but wouldn't hold my breath on that one. All right, let's change gears. So speaking of what the Justice Department is doing, we got to dive into this Robinhood stuff. A lot to dissect here. I want to start by taking a quick look at this interview from the CEO of Robinhood. And to frame this out just a little bit, catch you up to speed. Robinhood is an app that people use to trade stocks. The whole point of the app is to make it more accessible to the layperson, to people who don't have stockbrokers, who don't work with financial institutions, who don't have sort of the money that you would need in order to start a brokerage account with some brokerage firm or something like that. We're talking about just the average everyday person who can download an app and invest $100, right? Very simple. Download an app, get on there and do it. And so what happened was, as this GameStop volatility was happening, you had all of these Redditors who were going in and, sort of doing a short squeeze, they call it, buying up stock to raise the stock price, knowing that these big hedge funds had already done short sales on it. So they're going to have to, they're going to have to cover their losses because they were expecting the stock to go down. Now the stock's going up. So what Robinhood did is it said, whoa, this is dangerous. We have too many of these lay people. We have too many retail investors, people, who like you and me, who just don't, we don't have millions of dollars or operate or work at hedge funds. We just want to go and invest in stock. And so as people were doing that, it was a problem for the hedge funds because they kept just going into Robinhood and buying more, buying more stock of the stock that was in a particular position. So stocks like GameStop and I think Blockbuster and AMC and some others. And what that was doing is, as more and more people were just diving into the pool, Robinhood said, whoa, there's a problem here, and this is hurting, presumably, this has been the allegation that's going on around the internet. This is hurting the big hedge fund investors that are upside down because of their short sales. So Robinhood then, the allegations are, they just stopped trading. You can no longer buy any more of this stock, because it's jeopardizing some of their bigger clients. So on CNBC, we have this interview between this gentleman, I don't know his name, and he's interviewing the CEO of Robinhood, and he's trying to get some answers out of the guy, and he's just not cooperating. Now, I clipped out a good minute and a half of the opening of this conversation, because it's just so frustrating. The interviewer is asking him, hey, can you just tell us why the hell you're doing this? There are a lot of people who've got, positions in GameStop. There's a lot of individuals who would like to go buy and be a part of this rally, and you're not allowing them to do that anymore. You didn't tell them at the outset of the case when they were signing on to use your app that you were going to be doing this stuff. Now you're doing it. What's going on? So let's listen to this interview. We're not going to get much out of it because he doesn't say much. He's a very squirrely CEO. He likes to take very simple questions and answer them with these mega long answers that don't provide much value of anything, which means I think he's just running out the time. It's just one man's opinion. Here he is.
And then why did you do this? Did the SEC call you and tell you you had to do this? Was there a problem?
Sorry.
And then why did you do this? Did the SEC call you and tell you you had to do this? Was there a problem inside the company in terms of liquidity, in terms of the amount of deposits that you had to put it in front to the exchanges? What led to this?
Sure, and let me explain exactly how this works. First of all, I want to address some of the misinformation that's been out there because there's a lot of it. We absolutely did not do this at the direction of any market maker or hedge fund or anyone we route to or other market participants. The reason we did it was because Robinhood is a brokerage firm. We have lots of financial requirements, including SEC net capital requirements and clearinghouse deposits. So that's money that we have to deposit at various clearinghouses. So some of these requirements fluctuate quite a bit based on volatility in the markets. And they can be substantial in the current environment where there's a lot of volatility and a lot of concentrated activity in these names that have been going viral on social media. So we're really in unprecedented times. And in order to protect the firm and protect our customers, we had to lit buying in these stocks. And to be absolutely clear, Go ahead.
But it sounds to me, though, that you're suggesting that there was a liquidity problem inside the firm. And my question about that then raises all sorts of new questions about whether there's a systemic issue underneath the system and underneath the company unto itself.
No, there was no liquidity problem. And to be clear, this was done preemptively. So we did this proactively, and thousands of other securities remain tradable on the platform. Customers that held these positions were able to sell them. And we're doing what we can to allow buying and to remove these restrictions in the morning. But also, you might have seen Robinhood has been the #1 app in the App Store overall. So we have seen unprecedented interest due to the fact that finance has been culturally relevant in a way that hasn't been before, and these stocks are going viral on social media. And I think it's really interesting to juxtapose against some of the other questions that we've been having before this. Of course, Robinhood stands for everyday investors. From the very beginning, we have stood for investors, opening up access and giving them the ability to trade commission-free in whatever they want. And we've gotten a lot of criticism that, maybe there should be more restrictions. So it pains us to have had to impose these restrictions, and we're going to do what we can to enable trading in these stocks as soon as we can.
Yeah, and he just keeps going on. He's like, well, but why? What's the restrictions for? If you don't have a liquidity problem and you have a lot of people who are dumping money and they're coming onto your app and they want to buy a particular stock, and we know you've got some regulations, some reporting regulations, you have to take that money and go buy the stock with it. Why are you not allowing that? And so when I start thinking about this, I'm not a stockbroker or stock trader. It's, I'm out of my element on this, but you can think about this just from a logical standpoint. If you're Robinhood and you have all these users going in and sort of pooling their money, you go buy a number of stocks from, let's say, a Gamestop, and you take that big bucket of money that's come from a bunch of different users. You take that, you want to go buy that GameStop stock, and then you sort of distribute the shares amongst your user base. And you restrict that? Why is that? Is that because you don't have enough money to go buy the shares of the GameStop stock, or what's going on? And he keeps asking questions, and this guy just keeps sort of talking around it. We've got these requirements, we've got all of these rules that we have to follow, and he asked him like 3 or 4 times, well, how about, it sounds like you got a liquidity problem, like you don't have the money to go execute these trades. And the guy just says, no liquidity at all. You can trade all these other stocks, but just not these. By the way, we are for democratizing investments. But you're you're kind of not, though, because you're stopping people who want to go and invest in this stock that's hurting the big hedge funds. It's hurting the people who've gone upside down on their short sales. They're wanting to come in and take advantage of their mistakes. You're preventing them from doing that. So, whatever the justification was for it, we've got these SEC rules and these compliance rules and you got to have these capital call, whatever it is, then why are you doing it on this? You've got the users who have the money to go buy shares via your service, and you're limiting them from doing that. Why is that? Feels like a little bit of skirting around the answer to me. Maybe there's a simple answer. I haven't seen it, though. Let's take a look at the lawsuit. So Robinhood is now, very quickly, this lawsuit was filed, I think, late last night. And it is by a fellow by the name of Brandon Nelson is the class action named individual. And this is what it looks like. It was filed over at the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. Class action complaint filed by Brandon Nelson against Robinhood Financials. And here's the nature. Robinhood is an online brokerage firm, and Robinhood purposefully, willfully, and knowingly removing the stock GME, which is GameStop, from its trading platform in the midst of an unprecedented stock rise, thereby deprived retail investors the ability to invest in the open market, and it's manipulating the open market. So we're going to talk about this word here, manipulation, because we have some guidance from the SEC and the Securities Exchange Act that we're going to dive into. But they're saying specifically, this is legal keywords here, manipulating the open market. And who's involved in this? So there's a number of different parties. The way that a class action works is I got to go back to my civil law. But what you're doing is you're trying to identify a group of individuals who have very similar claims. And if you can consolidate them, then it's going to save some court resources and you can resolve the claims all together. And they're sort of less jeopardized if they're in a class than if they would be suing individually, right? They may not all have the resources to go bring a claim by themselves. They have a lot of conformity amongst themselves. The issues that are arising that would necessitate a class action are very much similar amongst the different plaintiffs who would be joining in the class. So let's take a look at who this class is. Who are these people who are in alignment and bringing this complaint? Well, first and foremost, we have Brandon Nelson. He's a citizen of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have these three defendants. We've got Robinhood Financial, Delaware Corporation, Robinhood Securities is an LLC, and then we've got Robinhood Markets, that's also a Delaware corporation. And then we'll see here, it looks like the jurisdiction and venue. All of this stuff is pretty simple, but they're saying that the claim here is greater than $5 million, which is why it belongs in this court. And these are the factual allegations. So this is being heard in New York because Robinhood does business in New York. And this is what they're claiming. Robinhood is an online brokerage firm. Its customers place securities trades through the firm's website or using an application. They experienced significant growth as a new firm. They raised $323 million in funding, and they have a $7.6 billion valuation. It markets itself to younger investors and claims over 10 million users use the app. On March 23rd, 2016, their official Twitter account said, "Let the people trade." They have since disregarded their mantra, and they've blocked access to millions of its customers to trade particular securities. On January 11th, stocks in Gamestop Corp began to rise. Robinhood allowed retail investors to trade on the open market, the Gamestop stock. But then on January 27th, Robinhood, in order to slow the growth of the GME, the GameStop, they deprived their customers of the ability to use their service, abruptly, purposefully, willfully, and knowingly pulled GME from their app, meaning retail investors could no longer buy or even search for GME on Robinhood's app. Upon information and belief, Robinhood's actions were done purposefully and knowingly to, there it is again, manipulate the market for the benefit of the people. Get rid of that. For the benefit of the people and the financial institutions who were not Robinhood's customers. So it looks like intuitions, a little bit of a typo right there. We have, since pulling the stock app from their app, prices have gone up, depriving investors of potential gains. So there's some harm we see in the lawsuit. We've got, additionally, the GME, when it goes down, Robinhood has deprived its investors of shorting GME in the hopes that the price drops. In sum, Robinhood has completely blocked retail investors from purchasing the GME for no legitimate reason, thereby depriving retail investors of the benefits of Robinhood's services. And they're going to be looking at the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, the FINRA. Probably have heard of that from your bank, or on the commercials, which governs brokers, Robinhood. It says that the rule 5310.01 requires, quote, Robinhood must make every effort to execute a marketable customer order that it receives promptly and fully. By failing to respond at all to anybody placing trades for GME and blocking customers, they're saying it's causing customers to incur substantial losses due to its own negligence and failure to maintain an adequate infrastructure. So this might be referring to liquidity. Robinhood continues to pull and randomly pull other securities from the app, and Robinhood is pulling securities like GME from its platform in order to slow growth and help benefit individuals and institutions who are not Robinhood customers, but are Robinhood large institutional investors or potential investors. So in other words, they're shafting the little guy in order to sort of puff up the bigger hedge funds and these bigger Wall Street companies. And there was some indication here that I'm not sure we're going to see it in this lawsuit, but I read another story that there are companies that will buy the data from Robinhood. They want to know how the individual retail investors are thinking about the stock market. They want to know whether or not people are buying certain stocks or trades. It's good data, and they can incorporate that data into their models on what to value and what stocks should go up and go down and how to advise their clients based on what the general public is doing. So, remember, data is the new oil and gas, many people are saying today. And Robinhood, as much as they are about democratizing people to trade without commission and get more accessible access to the stock market, they're also gobbling up that data and they're packaging it up. They're saying, hey, males who are 24 to 75, whatever demographics are doing this, that, and the other thing, and then they're packaging that data up and selling it to these hedge funds so that they can further refine their own models. Here's what happened to the plaintiffs. On the morning of January 28th, so the plaintiffs are the people suing Robinhood, plaintiff used his Robinhood app, searched for GME, on the app and found it was unavailable. So this was on January 28th. This was yesterday. The stock did not even appear, although GME is a publicly traded company on all other platforms. So under paragraph 25, thus, the plaintiff, like so many others, lost out on all earning opportunities, as we can see. Plaintiffs hereby incorporate by fact everything else above. So in order to use the Robinhood trading platform, they enter into a customer agreement. Customer agreement is going to be pretty important. We're going to talk about it a bit here. Plaintiff and all other class members, they did enter into a customer agreement, and then Robinhood breached that agreement. They didn't disclose that the platform was going to randomly pull off a profitable stock for its market. They didn't tell anybody that they were going to do this stuff. Robinhood failed to provide an adequate explanation. They knowingly put their customers at a disadvantage compared to other people who use other trading apps. They also failed to provide access to its own financial incentives to pull certain securities. So if they pulled that off, then they must have some other incentive financially, and they didn't give their customers access to that. I think that's what that's saying. Robinhood prohibited plaintiffs from performing in a timely manner under the contract. They failed to comply with all the regulations, and they did not exercise the trades and the actions that were requested by their customers, which is a pretty big deal. If you think that you're using an app and you go in there and you tell the app to do something because you've got this user agreement that you signed, and they just say, we're just not going to do that for you. And you go, but I'm relying on, you told me you were going to do it. That's why I'm using your app. That's why I've set up these accounts. That's why I've got money in my portfolio that I want to invest towards this thing. Now they're saying you can't do that. So, with stocks, it's a very important, timing is incredibly important. So by the next day, by the time you get another account set up with another platform, it's probably too late. You've probably missed the wave. And so, some people might say that's a good thing because this is kind of a dangerous game that people are playing, but it's also up to the person. You have the freedom to do what you want to do with your money. And if Robinhood is promising you that they're going to deliver on a service, you use the service and you enter into a customer agreement with them and they don't perform on that service, it's a pretty big problem. And they're not telling you how they're doing it. They're just removing stuff off. Troubling. Robinhood breached its customer agreement with the plaintiff, and they failed to perform. It continues to expose their customers to damages and so on and other things. And here are the different causes of actions that they're claiming. So a breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. So it's just implied in the agreement that Robinhood is going to uphold its end of the deal. They agreed to the terms and conditions. Members of the class fulfilled their obligations. They did what they said that they were going to do. Robinhood was obligated to provide the services they said that they were going to provide. They all stated that they could actually trade GME when they signed up, and then they unfairly interfered with their rights. Robinhood caused harm and damage to everybody in the class. Another cause of action, number 3, negligence. So this is where they're saying, cause of action number 2, this is saying that, good faith and fair dealing. This is, we want to sort of work together. We had this implied understanding that we were going to use this and you were going to give us this service. This is different. Negligence is saying they actually screwed something up. They did something wrong. It wasn't that we had this nice agreement and they just didn't perform. This is, they're actually messing stuff up here. So they're saying they had a duty to exercise reasonable care in providing trades on a free, open, and market for its platform. They breached its duties by removing GME without notice. So that's negligence, because the people, think about this. If you're somebody who wants to trade stock and you go, oh, perfect, now's the right time. Now I'm going to go and buy it. It just had a big dip. Something happened. Elon Musk just retweeted, Stonks, and boom, it's going up. I want to ride that wave. So as soon as you hop into your app, you don't even know it. You don't even know what's going on. They didn't email you. They didn't notify you that you couldn't do it. You go on, you're SOL. You're totally out of luck. You just missed the wave. Catastrophic. Failed to provide financial service related to GME, and they failed to notify customers of the GME blackout. Their omission was an extreme departure from the ordinary standard of conduct. So with negligence, you talk about a duty, and you talk about a breach of that duty. Their actions breach any duty of care to their customers. Robinhood owed their customers an obligation. They had a duty to perform. They breached that. And the standard of care that is expected from other firms on the market helps to establish what Robinhood should have done. Had you gone through any other firm, it would have been okay, but because Robinhood was dropping below the standard of care, they're saying here that they're responsible and that they were negligent. They say that they abandoned their customers by pulling GME, and that is a standard of care that is far, far below what you would expect. Just to abandon, nope, we're not doing that anymore. Thanks for playing. They mentioned time-sensitive trading here as well. Grossly negligent, wrongful breaches of its duties owed to plaintiff proximately caused losses and damages that would not have occurred but for Robinhood's gross breach of its duty and due care. That was kind of fun for me. I haven't discussed negligence in a while, but it's duty, breach, cause, and harm. Do you have a duty to perform something? If you do, and that duty is breached, and you can connect the cause, somebody had a duty here. Robinhood had a duty. They breached it. They were the cause of the harm. Duty, breach, cause, and harm. If you're going to law school, you're going to remember that. Duty, breach, cause, and harm. And then the harm was a direct result. It was directly cause, and it would not have happened but for Robinhood's negligence. They had a duty that was breached. They caused the harm. Sounds like a pretty good claim to me. Here, they're also saying that there was a breach of fiduciary duty, right? So they have a special obligation to act as a fiduciary, which is different than just, selling somebody a sandwich or something like that. It's a real high standard of care. They're a licensed provider of financial services. At all times, they had to act in the highest good faith and integrity in performing the financial services. That's what a fiduciary is. They breached its duties by removing GME. They didn't notify, right? So the same conduct is a violation of multiple standards. It's negligent. It's a breach of the implied covenant of good faith. It's a breach of the fiduciary duty, and it caused them a ton of harm. Another cause of action. Nope, that's it. So we just have looks like 4 causes of action. And here's what they're asking for: an immediate injunction requiring Robinhood to reinstate Gamestop on their trading platform. They want an award for the plaintiffs to be determined. They want an award for attorney's fees, and they want an award for punitive damages for the willful, wanton, reckless behavior of Robinhood. So this was signed off by this attorney, Alexander G. Cabagessa-Sirius, an Esquire over in New York. And I think this is probably the start of a lot of these. There's going to be a lot of people who are very upset. A lot of money is at stake here. And this is kind of bizarre behavior. When you kick off an entire internet platform like Parler, for example, can you sue over the harm on that? Can you sue because you don't have a platform? This is a little bit different. This is, you had a platform to go execute a trade. Now we're talking about financial securities that are assets. So if you're thrown off of Parler, you as a user, what's the harm? Well, in my opinion, I think it's a pretty big harm. It's freedom of speech, it's freedom of association, essentially it's censorship. That's a whole separate discussion. But the point here is that, it's speech. It's not a tangible asset. It's not dollars in the bank. Here, by being denied access to their platform or being restricted to use their platform, we're talking about dollars in the bank. We're talking about green money that is not being accounted for. People go on and they expect that they're going to be able to trade and invest and use the platform as they were told they can use it. So now that they're being denied access to that, they're essentially being deplatformed from the one area of the platform that matters to them. They're losing out on the opportunity cost from buying stock low and selling high, and other pretty considerable harms. There's another lawsuit that's coming out as well. This was not the first one. There's going to be a lot more of them. This other one is being filed out of the Northern District of Illinois. You can see here it says the guy who is filing the suit is Richard Joseph Gatz, also suing Robinhood Financial. Similarly, it's a request for an injunction. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this one. Jurisdiction in federal court, pretty clear, cut and dry stuff. Basis, yep, it's a federal question. Statement of the claim, write a short brief. This looks like a form lawsuit. Robinhood has securities and options and a mobile application. And here's where their claim is. This one, they're talking about some other stock. They're talking about BlackBerry, Nokia, AMC. The defendant halted trading on its securities exchange platform of those three stocks. On information and belief, they have continued to allow trading for institutional investors. Can you believe that? Oh man, I'll be very interested to see. They're allowing trading for institutional investors, but not for the retail investors as it relates to these stocks. At least that's what this allegation says. BlackBerry, AMC, and Nokia. Richard Gatz, hereinafter the plaintiff, owned 2 options contracts for BlackBerry at the time of the trading halt. The value of these options decreased by almost 200%, and the BlackBerry stock price fell over $10 from the days prior to close. On information and belief, the halting of the trading of these stocks was to protect institutional investment at the detriment of the retail customers. Furthermore, this appears to be in lockstep with other security trading platforms such as Ally Financial, TD Ameritrade, and potential others. So literally allowing the big boys to continue to trade and use the platform and manipulate and move those stocks around, but not the retail investors. That's a pretty serious claim. They're saying that this caused irreparable injury. They're saying, explain why these damages would be adequate. The halt of retail trading of these stocks caused irreparable harm, will continue to do so. Plaintiff is unable to get fair market value for his options contract. And manipulation, another word there, the manipulation has caused the price of BlackBerry to fall. If the stocks are not allowed to be trading, it is likely that the plaintiff will take a financial loss solely due to the defendant's behavior and manipulation of their trading platform. So they're going to cause him actual harm because he's not allowed to manipulate those stocks. He's not allowed to trade those stocks on their platform. The defendant has, on information and belief, continued to allow investment in these securities by institutional investors who have benefited from the stoppage of the retail investment, right? Because the price is going up and they've done a short sale on the stocks. So they were expecting it to go down. It's going up. They're going to lose their ass. And these retail investors are going to make a boatload of money if they're allowed to trade and move their stock around. Here's the relief. It says, plaintiff respectfully requests that this honorable court require Robinhood to continue to allow trading of these securities for retail investors so they can trade at their actual market value based upon a retail and institutional investment. Plaintiff's monetary damages continue to accrue and will likely be substantial. So another injunction. They're asking the court to mandate that Robinhood do something. And in this case, it's turn the app back on. Let people get back in there and start moving the stocks around. Now, today, my understanding is the stock market took a dive. I think it was down 600 points. And so we've got a lot of individuals who are going to have their eyeballs over this stuff over the weekend. We're talking about the SEC. We're talking about the Banking Committee in the Senate. A lot of politicians from around the country are chiming in. Yesterday, we heard from AOC. We heard from Ted Cruz. And on and on and on. So let's dive into it. What does this mean? How can we break this down? Let's do some analysis on this. Now, because I am not a stockbroker or a financial attorney, I don't do any of that type of work. I was looking around last night for an explanation on how this stuff works from somebody who's got more experience than I do. And I found, I think, some pretty interesting information. This story was over from lawandcrime.com. Pretty good website if you're interested in legal news. And they sent an email over to a a Columbia Law School professor, a guy by the name of John C. Coffey Jr., and he has authored case law books on security law and corporate law. So this guy, he knows what he's talking about. So let's dive in with him and see if he can help explain some of this for us. The ongoing saga surrounding the GameStop stock is fueled by Redditors. It's drawing the legal attention of regulators and professors. Okay, this is where I was getting a little bit concerned about this. Are they going to prosecute this? It sort of yesterday, I think we were talking with Pinky, and she was saying, it kind of feels like manipulation. It sort of feels like something that might not technically be legal according to the standard thinking, but it kind of feels like that. Or at least if you have a bunch of billionaires with unlimited money and you have a federal government that protects the hell out of them at any cost, maybe they might find some sort of an obscure way to make it illegal. Okay, just like, a month ago, I would have never in my wildest dreams thought that the federal government, the U.S. Attorney's Office under the Department of Justice, would ever be prosecuting somebody for posting memes on the internet. Would have never thought about that. But here we are. Okay, somebody's being charged with making memes. And they're calling it something, in my opinion, that it's not. So here, are there any rules as it relates to this stuff? Yes. Does this fall cleanly within those rules? It's kind of being debated right now. And if you can make an argument that something does fall within the confines of illegality, and you have an administration or you have a prosecutor or U.S. attorney or a DOJ that wants to go after these people at the behest of the SEC or some of the big other hedge funds that have a lot of power, a lot of levers on all of the Congress people and senators and everybody in the government. Every single year we hear about this. Largely, it's from the Democrats, to their credit. They say they got too much power. The Wall Street, fat cats have too much power. And we're sort of seeing it play out right in front of us. These apps are giving them more options than they're giving the regular people, of which I include myself. All right? And it's very frustrating. So let's go back. In brief, professional investors tried to make money by betting against GameStop's future chance of success. Redditors rallied. They purchased a massive amount of the company's stock price to stiff the pros and force them to lose money. And here's what he says. This is from law professor John C. Coffey. It's possible, indeed necessary, to be critical of both sides, the shorts and the longs. The shorts had taken a more than 100% position in the stock. So these are the professional investors, he's saying. That means they had sold more shares than actually existed. So they were over leveraged, I think is the term. This implies that someone was cheating, perhaps by executing naked shorts, short sales, where you have not borrowed the stock in advance. So they were sort of selling stuff that they didn't have. This is certain to push the stock down, and it's arguably evidence of manipulation. So now you've got manipulation again, this word, this magic word being used in this synopsis by John Coffey, saying that the major hedge funds, the institutional investors, the big boys, they were manipulating the stock. He goes on, to sell a stock on the market, you have to own it or borrow the shares. You cannot borrow more than 100%. If the shares shorted exceed the numbers outstanding, someone has sold what he does not own or has borrowed. So I think that's how this all started, is somebody identified that. They said, hey, these guys are just, they don't have that. What they're claiming they have, they don't have it. So if we jack up the price of the stock, then they're going to have to cover what they're claiming they have that they don't have, and they're not going to be able to afford it because they don't have it. The new development, according to John, says this is on the long side. We have major new development in this case and in several other stocks such as AMC. The proletariat of the retail investors has revolted and stormed the Bastille, overwhelming the aristocrats and their hedge funds. Doesn't that sound good? Doesn't it sound fun? It sounds fun. I don't really know, but it sounds fun. This is a problem for regulators because it's very hard to regulate the mass investors when they act irrationally. Some will call this manipulations. Investors expressing their sincere, if crazy, views about valuation is not fraud. Fraud and manipulation occurs when someone disseminates false information with scienter, which is sort of a knowing that it was intentionally wrong, or where there is collusion. It's a legal term for acknowledging wrongdoing. It would be the intent to deceive, manipulate, or defraud. He is predicting something now. Evidence of collusion is still very thin. Perhaps some will arise on closer investigation. These events were not a pump and dump scheme. If you want to slow the market's exuberance, the best options are to encourage the brokers to impose higher margin requirements for high-risk stocks, restrict the sale of options on higher-risk stocks, and brief trading halts. Possibly the one new development that you would want to chill is Reddit's Wall Street Bets website. But the First Amendment is a real barrier here if the speakers are only providing statements of opinions. My prediction, the irrational investors in GameStop are about to lose a lot of money over the next week or two, and with that pain will come some wisdom. So he's sort of taking the approach here that probably legal, not wise, because what comes up must come down. And if you get caught up on the end, right, if you get caught up at the top of the bubble, you buy a bunch of stock and it comes crashing down because everybody knows that you've hit the high mark. So everybody starts selling. You're going to see a rapid, just catastrophic fall down the other direction. So the SEC, as we talked about this week, has indicated they're aware, actively monitoring the ongoing market volatility. We are working with our fellow regulators to assess the situation and review the activities and other market participants. So regulated entities, financial intermediaries, and other market participants, which is basically the Redditors, right? And it's the retail investors. They're saying that the SEC may shut down grading of GameStop using a severe market disruption authority. It could issue new rules concerning Reddit. Others posted that the SEC may shut down. I'm sorry, we already read that. Some people on the internet will be surprised when the SEC investigates them for market manipulation. So this is kind of a counterpoint. So it sounded like John Coffey, the professor from Columbia, was saying, it doesn't sound like this is market manipulation. He's sort of on this isn't illegal, it's just unwise part of the continuum. Saying, well, you can do this as long as you're expressing your opinion, as long as you're not trying to sort of pump this up. And it's just your honest opinion, which is what he says, right? Only providing a statement of opinions according to the First Amendment, that would be protected. But what if it's closer to manipulation? What if it's closer to something that has already been codified in the law that is unlawful, that is illegal? Well, that's what James Follows Tierney, who is also a College of Law professor, is hinting at. Here's what he says. He suggested that the GameStop situation looks a little bit like a pump and dump scheme. He says, quote, when fraudsters drum up support for a worthless stock before selling to dummies. But that does not quite fit the usual mold. Rather, he said, regulators might use Section 9 of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. It was codified in U.S. Code 78I. We're going to talk about it here in a minute. He says to deal with, quote, manipulation in the markets. And so, this is new territory, but this is what he's saying on Twitter. Security regulators have tools beyond, quote, fraud at their disposal to get at other objectionable market practices. One such tool, what the heck was that? One such tool is Section 9 of the 34 Act, which prohibits manipulation. Okay, remember we keep seeing that language. The SEC once called it the very heart of the act. Section 9, it says here under this guidance, we're going to look at the law next, but it says Section 9 of the SEA, so the Securities Exchange Act, deals with all important problem of manipulation of securities prices. It's the very heart of the act. Once again, manipulation. Any proposal which would weaken the prohibition against manipulation in any aspect would deprive investors of the most important safeguard afforded them by the act. So there's some language in this law that is very strongly hinting that they can do stuff to prevent against manipulation. Section 9A2, which we're going to look at next, of the Act prohibits raising or depressing the price of a security or creating actual or apparent active trading therein, quote, for the purpose of inducing the purchase or sale of such security by others. So let's take a look at the law. This is under 15 U.S. Code. It says manipulation of security prices. And a couple things we can read right here. Transactions relating to the purchase or sale of security. It shall be unlawful for any person directly or indirectly by the use of mails or any means of instrumentality of interstate commerce. So this could be Robinhood, the stock market, any app, website, whatever, or any facility of any national securities exchange for any of them if they do one of these two following. It's unlawful if they do one of these two following, either subsection 1 or subsection 2. And he was referencing 9A2, so we're going to go to A, we're going to go down here to 2. It's unlawful if, to effect, alone or with one or more persons, a series of transactions in any security registered on a national exchange in connection with respect to such security, creating actual or apparent active trading in such a security or raising or depressing the price of any such security for the purpose of inducing the purchase or sale of such security by others. So that's really the key language, I think. To effect with one or more persons the raising or depressing of the price. So you can kind of just take this sentence and connect it with this sentence, and you see this or here, so it doesn't have to be all that other stuff, or raising or depressing the price for the purpose of inducing the purchase or sale of such security by others. And so, that's kind of exactly what's going on, right? A lot of people are talking about raising the price, like literally, and that's directly from this language. It shall be unlawful for any person to effect alone or with one or more persons the raising or depressing the price of any such security. It's right from the statute. So, just like we saw with the memeologist getting arrested, they went and found this obscure U.S. code statute that, we did some research on it and haven't seen it used for online internet postings before, but now it is. So same story here, right? 15 U.S. code 78I. If you have an aggressive prosecutor, if you have an active DOJ, if you have several billionaires who are pressuring them to go after this stuff, it scares me. It scares the hell out of me. I didn't buy any GameStop stock, but it scares me for the other people who have. Just everyday people who want to get in on the fun. Just like the meme guy was trolling people, having a good time. This is trolling. This is literal financial trolling. They're trolling the big hedge funds. They're saying, all right, jerks, you want to do this? How about we just keep buying it? And everybody's on Twitter saying, hold the line, don't sell, wait till they all go bankrupt, because they're all upside down over on Wall Street. They're trolling the hell out of them. The last time somebody trolled, they're under criminal indictment now. Strange new world we're living in, folks. These are the follow-up posts from James Tierney. It says Section 9A2 makes it illegal to raise the price of the stock for the purpose of inducing the purchase of such security by others. Sound familiar? Look again at the GameStop strategy, steps 1 through 4. Can post show the purpose, which is to induce the purchase? He says, I don't mean to suggest that traders have violated 9A2, but the SEC is undoubtedly looking into it. I would believe that is accurate. Maybe it is or isn't a winning theory, but putting it to the test is costly. The SEC typically has leverage to get its targets to settle. And he's got some more information here. Professor Fletcher noted, the SEC has not made use of this provision, but he says here, maybe that'll change soon. The rest of the article about open market manipulation is great and worth reading. So if you want to check that out, go follow James F. Tierney on Twitter. So there is an expert on the SEC litigation who is telling us very clearly there's a section, which we just read together, that I think could apply. Whether the SEC does anything about it or not is another question. Speaking of the SEC, this is what it looks like on their website. Here's how you would report suspected securities fraud or wrongdoing. We strongly encourage the public to submit any tips and complaints. What are they saying? They want you to report this stuff. Manipulation of the security price or the volume. Okay, so if that's happening on a big scale on Wall Street bets or anywhere around the internet, what does that mean? Well, if you click that link, this is what it looks like. Market manipulation is when someone artificially affects the supply or demand of a security. Market manipulation may involve techniques including spreading false or misleading information about the company. Okay, I'm not so sure that that's really happened here. Or how about this? Engaging in a series of transactions to make a security appear more actively traded. Rigging quotes, prices, trades to make it look like there is more or less demand for a security than there is the case. They talk about micro stock caps and all those things. Okay, and that's right on their website. So this is not even obscure SEC code or anything that we just went through, U.S. code. It's right on their website. So if you're playing that game, this isn't legal advice. Don't take legal advice from this show. This is a live stream, not an attorney-client relationship, but it makes me nervous just a little bit. All right. And so speaking of that, if you're out there on Twitter blasting Robinhood, they can just shut you down. That's according to the terms in their user agreement. Robinhood users who flipped out about the restricted trading really should read this. As part of their user agreement that you agree to when you sign up for their platform, it says they got many financial requirements. Some of these can fluctuate based on the volatility in the markets. They can be substantial in the current environment. These requirements exist to protect investors and the markets, and we take our responsibilities seriously. Here are some of the restrictions. I understand that Robinhood may at any time, and its sole discretion and without prior notice to me, prohibit and restrict my access to use the app, refuse to accept my transactions, refuse to execute any of my transactions, terminate my account. Anyone Now, here you go. This is great. Further, Robinhood will not tolerate any foul or abusive language, physical violence, threatening behavior, or other inappropriate conduct directed towards Robinhood. Don't badmouth them, folks. They don't like it. If I engage in any such behavior, I agree Robinhood is authorized to liquidate any securities in my account. Just get rid of it. Send me the proceeds, close my account. 1, 2, and 3, boom, 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 you're done. Robinhood will not be responsible for any losses caused by the liquidation of the securities or anything else, including any tax liabilities. So if you are one of these individuals on the internet, this is an effing crime what Robinhood did. Robinhood must die. F you. Let the people trade. Right? And that was from Dave Portnoy over at Barstool saying F you to them. Right? And Ja Rule's even in on the game. Robinhood must die. This is an effing crime, says Ja Rule. Do not sell. Hold the line, even from Ja Rule. So if Robinhood sees that, then they can just go ahead and cut the deal. Robinhood may terminate this agreement. They can do anything. I will remain liable to Robinhood for all obligations incurred. Arbitration, they've got a very binding arbitration clause. So, it sounds like it's a pretty bulletproof document. They got another article here from, it says, because Robinhood is not run by complete idiots, there's a mandatory arbitration clause. The Supreme Court has made it abundantly clear that you got to abide by those. So what's going to happen? Well, we're going to have to just buckle up and wait and see. Looks like Congress is getting involved. Congress is going to hold hearings on the stock debacle. Sherrod Brown says that they're planning to hold hearings in the Senate. Volatility has been most pronounced with GameStop, but there are others. This is the document from Sherrod Brown. Wall Street only cares about rules when hedge funds get hurt. So Sherrod Brown, incoming chairman of the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, says this, quote, people on Wall Street only care about the rules when they're the ones getting hurt. American workers have known for years that the Wall Street system is broken. They've been paying the price. It's time for the SEC and Congress to make the economy work for everyone, not just Wall Street. That's why as incoming chair, I plan to hold a hearing and do that important work. So that's a good thing. We'll see what comes out of it. But it is it's kind of a wild time. See where this goes. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about Subway. We're not talking about Jared. We're talking about another lawsuit. Because apparently, that tuna sandwich you get in your footlong? It's not even tuna. Eesh. What a catastrophe for this country. We were hoping 2021 would be a different era, a different year. We can't even trust Subway anymore. What is this coming to? This article is over from Cron 4, which is a local site. Lawsuit claims Subway's tuna sandwiches, quote, lack any trace of tuna, which is just terrible. Oh my goodness, it's just awful. All right, let's dive into it. In the latest litigation aimed at Subway's ingredients, 2 people are suing the sandwich maker in California, saying the tuna is anything but. In reality, the products do not contain tuna, nor have any ingredient that constitutes tuna, claims plaintiffs Karen Danawa and Nilima Amin in court documents that were filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. And I'll tell you this, man, if there really isn't any tuna in there, I got questions about the turkey. I got questions about the cold cut. This could be catastrophic. Dahona and Amin claim they were tricked into buying mislabeled food and that an independent lab tested, quote, multiple samples and determined, quote, the ingredients were not tuna and not fish, said the attorney in an email. The lab test found Subway tuna is actually, quote, a mixture of various concoctions that have been blended together to give them the appearance of tuna. He declined to specify what the lab tests were purportedly found in the mixture. However, it's accusing Subway of capitalizing on the premium price consumers are willing to pay for tuna, the only seafood item on the menu. Subway responded and said there is simply no truth to the allegations in the complaint that was filed in California. They say that the restaurants serve only wild-caught tuna. Subway delivers 100% cooked tuna to its restaurants, which is mixed with mayonnaise and used in freshly made sandwiches, wraps, and salads that are served to and enjoyed by our guests. I'm just enjoying saying tuna so much. It's just it's enjoyable for me. Well, here's what we've got. We've got Elamin Abdeladam Lamoud says, I love how a court ruled that Subway bread is not legally bread, but because 2020 was so crazy, we just breezed right past it. It's not the first time that Subway's been the target of lawsuits over its sandwiches. Last year, Subway franchisee in Ireland lost a taxation case after the Supreme Court ruled that the sandwich bread has too much sugar to meet the legal definition of bread, which has zero value added tax in the country. U.S. Court of Appeals tossed a lawsuit claiming that the foot-long sandwiches weren't really 12 inches long. Everything is broken in this country. You can't sell stock. You can't get on the internet if you're a certain category. You can't post memes anymore. Can't even get a foot-long sandwich that is actually tuna. Oh my goodness. Here is the lawsuit out of the U.S. District Court, Northern District of California. We've got 7 claims here. This is a serious deal. These people are pissed. They're suing Subway. They're saying this is a common law fraud. It's intentional misrepresentation. It's also negligent representation. It's unjust enrichment because you paid for tuna. You didn't get tuna. They're keeping the money anyways, meaning they got enriched unjustly. They're citing some stuff under the Consumer Legal Remedies Act. They've got a violation of false advertising law, a violation of the Unfair Competition Act, and they are demanding a jury trial. And I, for one, hope they get it. To capitalize on the premium price that they're paying, they said here, the heightened value on tuna as an ingredient, the composition of the products, increase profits at the expense of unsuspecting buyers. They label them as tuna. However, it's false and misleading. Reality, the products do not contain tuna nor have any ingredient that constitutes tuna. The product lacks tuna, and they're completely bereft of tuna as an ingredient. Products are misbranded under California and federal law. All throughout Subway eatery locations. Subway dining establishment is representing the products that are manufactured. The court has jurisdiction in California and other places. And here's what they're asking for. We'll wrap it up right here. It says plaintiffs are asking that the action be certified as a class action lawsuit and maintained as a class action, and certify that these plaintiffs are appointed to represent the class. They want the court to declare that the conduct violates the statutes that are referenced herein. They want compensatory and punitive damages, and they should get that too, by the way. They want proposed members, the court to propose the members of the class, attorney's fees, and they want to stop Subway from making non-tuna sandwiches anymore. Damn it. The court awards equitable monetary relief. They want restitution. They want a disgorgement of ill-gotten gains. I wonder how many tuna sandwiches these people ate that were not actually tuna sandwiches. How much money should they be getting back? How much should they be compensated for this sandwich travesty? The court awards pre-judgment and post-judgment interest. So not only should they get compensated for the tuna that wasn't tuna, but they should be getting paid interests for that as well. And this lawsuit was drafted by this woman here. It looks like, or a person, I'm not sure what the gender is, Dogra Law Group, Shalini, Dogra, ESQ. And that was filed a week ago. So I, for one, folks, am outraged about this. I hope they get to the bottom of it. I want to know, is the lettuce even lettuce? Is the mayo even mayo? Are the tomatoes really tomatoes? Are we just living in Fantasyland? I'm speechless. Let's go to the super chats. We have our first one in here from Sharon Quidney. Says, regarding the Clinesmith altering the emails, isn't that like tampering with evidence or something? Yeah, it is. It's called falsifying evidence. You can't do that. It's a huge problem. That would be like, a judge granting a warrant to go search your home, but the warrant was just fraudulent. A cop went in there and said, yeah, Sharon, you've got a bunch of illegal drugs in there in your home. And they go to the judge, and the judge says, are you sure there's illegal drugs? Yes, there are illegal drugs. I put it on here on this affidavit, on this search warrant request. Turns out that's totally fraudulent, but they went in and they searched your home anyways. It's a big problem. No jail, $100 fine for that guy. Joe Sosnowski says, everyone in Illinois should be calling their House rep urging support for HB 0150 to repeal the FOID Act, the law requiring a firearm owner ID to own guns. Did I see that? Did I see that one poking around here? I might have seen that. Yeah, there is a very, very grotesque bill that is floating around. It might be that. So maybe take a look at that. HB 0150, firearm owner ID. I read through it. A friend of mine posted that. And it was grotesque if you are a Second Amendment person, as I am. Thanks, Joe. We got another one from Joe. They are 125-day behind with applicants. Law allows 30. People are often arbitrarily revoked or denied, and appeals don't get reviewed. Zero due process. So he must be talking again about HB 0150 out of Illinois. So give your representative a call if you're in Illinois and address that if you want to follow Joe's lead on some of that. Thank you, Joe. We have another one from Wolfgang Deo in the house. He's got a couple getting us started as well. He says here, yeah, so what? The quote, good guy has those typical things. However, how about he apologized for not stepping up sooner to stop all the harm his fault caused? Well, because he probably didn't think he was going to get caught for it. And, there was something also interesting here that I think we forgot to mention as it relates to the Clinesmith stuff, is that Carter Page, the person who was the subject of the malfeasance of Clinesmith's misconduct, he actually went to court and testified. He said, look, yeah, my life was kind of ruined by this thing. Thank you for that, by the way. But I'm not going to ask that you go to prison. I know what it's like to have my life ruined. I'm not going to ruin your life, which I thought was pretty forgiving. I see people a lot. We represent a lot of defendants. And sometimes people on the other side of the aisle, they're just still hot, a year later. And I understand it. They're the victim of a crime. But when you see somebody who's sort of able to forgive, who just says, yeah, look, you made a mistake. You're acknowledging it. You're owning up to it. I'm going to accept your apology. I'm going to accept your remorse. Carter Page could have gone in there and said, no, Judge, my life is ruined. Literally. Everybody thinks I'm a Russian traitor because of this person. I want to see the maximum. He could have done that. Didn't do it. That's to his credit, in my opinion. Wolfgang Deo says, Clinesmith's career is already over. Nah, it's only beginning. He's just a coder in training now that he is out of public service. Start that career. Yeah, so learn to code. Clinesmith will write a book about this. He'll probably go appear on MSNBC or something like that. So I think he'll be just fine. Turd Ferguson says, the only reason why Clinesmith doesn't bother me is because Carter Page is going after a $75 million payday. Cha-ching. He's getting his Bivens on fun times. I didn't know that. So there you go. So I just got done explaining what a nice guy Carter Page was. But Carter is now going after $75 million, probably directly from the FBI. We got Beth Coddington says, hi guys, did you hear about the man who sued an airline company after it mislaid his luggage? Sadly, he lost his case. Bada boom, cha-ching. Beth Coddington with the jokes today on this lovely Friday. Thank you for that, Beth. We have another one here from Dab Banksta. Says, Robert, great show. It seems that the FISA issue with Clinesmith is going to open a can of worms regarding weaponization of the intelligence community. Fingers crossed. I would love to see that. I mean, I really think that we're sort of just scratching the surface on this stuff. I think that there are probably some pretty systemic issues there with the intelligence community across the board, and largely as it relates to communication between a number of these different IC agencies. So, the FBI, the CIA, we saw here with the Carter Page stuff and the Clinesmith stuff that there was communication happening back and forth. And in the sort of processing of evidence, somebody just had enough capability to manipulate something. It went, all under the radar for a long period of time. There were a lot of problems with this stuff as it relates to, Carter Page and the Mueller report and all of it. I would be hopeful that we would learn more about it, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I think that they're all going to want to just continue to sweep this stuff under the rug and act like nothing happened. Wolfgang Deo says, in a republic and democracy, power of the people is used for the least of us. In quote, democracy, you can only have democracy when it is in my interest. Well, I think Alexis de Tocqueville brought that up, and I think he talks about the tyranny of the majority, which is a concern when you're talking about democracies, which is why we're not a direct democracy. We're a democratic republic, and you elect representatives to go and then vote on your behalf. Because if you have a direct democracy, then you could have a situation where everybody just votes themselves more raises at the expense of the minority. We see that already happening in this country. We got TZ1052 says, fact, Google restored Robinhood's rank from the worst app. Deleted the bad reviews and put it back as a top app. Collusion, yellow journalism, and corruption. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about here regularly. It's like the pillars of the power structure that exist. You've got journalism, you've got the government, you've got big tech, you've got Wall Street, you've got the pharmaceuticals, you've got, they're all big media, just all sort of in collusion, just circling the wagons and protecting everybody. The little guy gets screwed every time. And it's just going to continue to happen. Good to see you, TZ. Pinky, too, says the SEC will get involved and can get to the bottom of it. Problem is, no one can put the genie in the bottle. Fiduciary duty, I typed as you said. Yeah, we'll see what they do. Good to see you, Pinky, and I appreciate you chiming in with your expertise on this stuff. Wolfie Da Friend says, big fan. Hypocrisy drives me bananas, and I love how you pointed out. I've learned a lot, plus you're easy on the eyes, LOL. Well, thank you, Wolfie. It's very sweet of you. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're learning some stuff. You're making me blush a little bit, so let's just move on. We have another one from John McLean. Says, TD Ameritrade stopped trading too, and they are flying under the radar. What about all the investors outside of Robinhood who lost money because of Robinhood's actions? I think it's a great point, John, and we're going to see a lot of lawsuits about this. I mean, what if you were somebody who was relying on them? You entered into an agreement. They said that they were going to execute the trades for you reliably. The user agreement presumably didn't declare in there that they were not going to execute a GameStop stock stuff transactions. So you have a lot of people who lost millions of dollars on both sides of this thing. And so I think that there's going to be calls to investigate, and they're going to be for different reasons. Okay, the hedge funds, the big billionaires, they're going to want all of this stuff to stop. The retail investors are going to want the opposite of that. They want access to the markets. Give them access to the markets. And the courts are going to have to sort this stuff out. And it's going to be very interesting to follow along. The Wandering Mariner says, GME is risky. Tesla is a sure thing, according to Nancy Pelosi. It's all rigged. Yeah, Tesla's another one. I happen to love Elon. There's a book about him, the biography. I forget what it's called. Outstanding. Great Audible, by the way. And so I love to see Elon kind of, needle the establishment in certain ways. I think after he retweeted he tweeted something that said, game stonk or something like that instead of game stock or game. I forget what he said. He tweeted something and the stocks just went boom, even further. Everybody goes, Elon's in. Let's go in even harder. And so, he's just needling the sort of elite class, even though I think he's the richest person in the world. It's kind of hilarious. But yeah, Tesla is also, I think they eked out a profit of like 700 million and they're valued at like 800 billion. People are going, I don't know how much sense that makes, but we'll see where Elon goes. Wolfgang says, humans are rational beings. Thus, where does it say the stock market is supposed to be rational? The reason is in the laws, not the acts. That's a good point there, Wolfgang. I agree with you. I think that a lot of people make a lot of decisions. Some are rational, some are not. Some people just want to play and see if they hit the lottery, and what's wrong with that? You've got some pretty smart people over on Reddit who figured this stuff out. Why are they not allowed access to the markets? They were told they had access. It's been revoked, even though, according to one lawsuit, it's still being provided to other of the big institutional investors. Not fair. John McLean, the hedge funds have to buy to cover their shorts in this case, so commercial investors will be dumping into the hedge funds, keeping the price up. Yes. Right. And so my question is, how does this break? Right? Who bails first? So it sounds like the big commercial investors who are already heavily invested in the shorts, they're propping up their funds so that they don't have to perform on the shorts, but they also don't go bankrupt. I think I could be getting that wrong. And so somebody's going to break, which is why Ja Rule was over there saying, hold the line, don't sell your stock. Because if they sell, if there's a massive sell-off of GME, then it's going to come crashing down, probably lower than it was. And so if you're holding on to those short sales and you can just weather the storm for a certain amount of time and the stock goes down, well, now those short sales contracts that you've already purchased will now be valuable again. They're only not valuable because the stock price is so high. If it tanks, it's going to be valuable again. So if they can just hang on, they may be able to weather it. But we're going to see who bails out first. Turd Ferguson says, take notes. This been added to the 2021 LSAT. Correct answer. Wall Street bets is to hedge fund managers as meme lords are to state election officials. That's a complicated. There's a lot of issues in there, Turd. You can really boil your noodle a little bit on those questions. The LSAT was not a fun test. Turd Ferguson, good to see you. Beth Coddington says, I took a stock seminar a number of years ago, learned all about shorting, puts, calls, ETFs, etc. The best strategy for me was buying and holding. Yes. HODL. I think is the appropriate term in cryptocurrency. John McLean says, are they going to prosecute 3 million people plus the media that's been talking about it? Well, John, I don't think they have to. I mean, they only have to prosecute one person. And if they do that, it's going to have a massive chilling effect on everybody else. That's kind of how this game is played now, right? They're going to prosecute the one meme guy from 2016 with the hopes that it is going to chill anybody else and prevent them or give them, disincentivize them from also posting memes, from also playing this troll game. And if they can silence enough people, then you don't have to prosecute everybody. You just got to make it known that you don't challenge the establishment in this way. You don't go against the grain. You play by the rules. As soon as you step out, you get crushed by the big hand of the government. So it would only need to be one person or a handful of people, and I think it would have the same effect. Wolfgang Deo says they induced the cheaters to buy back their stocks. If the SEC goes after a mass of retail investors, they will face the people's induced response. I would hope so. I would hope so, Wolfgang. I just don't know. You have to remember this also. A lot of these individuals are not big money people. They don't have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to mount a legal defense. Okay, now you've got the great weight of the federal government at the behest of the SEC, at the behest of billionaires who own basically everything, crashing down upon you. What do? You put up a fight, or do you just say, yeah, I'll take an agreement, I'll plead guilty, give me probation, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. It's typically how it works. Kenny 1B says, Robinhood could have just run out of money for clearing corp deposits. Not enough available money to secure transactions for mass buys with no warning. And I think that's what the questioner, that interviewer, was getting at. He's saying, is this a liquidity problem? Like, do you have enough money? Are you saying that people are giving you the money to go buy the stock and you can't go buy the stock? There's not enough money there available. And he just kept poo-pooing around that question. Now, I also did read that Robinhood got sort of an infusion of, I think, of $1 billion from some other investors. And so they're sorting it out. We're going to see how the dust settles on this, but thanks for that input there. We have Sharon Quidney says, oh, great, now Congress is getting involved in the stock market mess. That's a sure guarantee that the system stays rigged in favor of the fat cats. That's how it goes. That's just how the system works now, Sharon. They all circle the wagons to protect themselves. Isaac Castillo says, Webull CEO explained better than the Robinhood CEO. Even then, there's partly unanswered question. We could sell, but couldn't buy GME stock. Yeah, and that's I think that's where the big rub is. You can sell it because they want the stock to lower, right? If everybody sells their shares, then there's an oversupply, and the price will necessarily come down. So selling is okay. They're okay with you divesting from GME, but if you invest into it, that pumps the price higher because there's only so many shares in circulation. So if you want a piece of a share, then the price is necessarily going to go up. If you want to get rid of yours, no problem. Somebody else will not be able to buy it when you sell it. Right? Is that how that works? Or these hedge funds are the people who so if they're not allowing you if they're allowing you to sell it, then that's presumably because they have buyers on the other end. They can transact, but you can't buy it through their platform. Does that not sound like manipulation? We got Kenny 1B says Robinhood is a free service to the user. You get what you pay for. Yeah, I understand that, Kenny 1, but you're also entering into an agreement with them, and they are profiting off of you. And I think they're doing so by bundling up your data and selling that off. And so if they're getting value and benefit out of you, it's just a contract, right? I'm going to sell you this. You're going to give me $1 to buy that product. It's the same type of transaction. Here, because the service is free, doesn't necessarily mean it's free. You're giving them something in the form of your information, your profile, your email. Maybe you'll make some money and they can sell you more services, or you can use what I don't use Robinhood. I don't know anything about the app itself other than what I've read recently. But it's one of those, it's just like Facebook, right? Facebook, they make the money by gobbling up your data and selling you advertisements. Here, it's more than that. Here, it's a financial asset that you could have gotten, or it's interfering with your ability to manage your assets. It's kind of a big problem, I think. Isaac Castillo says, sandwich, an item of food consisting of 2 pieces of bread with meat, cheese, and other filling between them, eaten as a light meal. A ham sandwich. Or allegedly a ham sandwich, allegedly meat, allegedly cheese. We don't know anymore, Isaac. Somebody better get to the bottom of this, because there's a lot of Subway that goes down in this office. Okay? And some Jimmy John's too, if I can be honest. Actually, we had that for lunch today. We had an all-hands meeting. We didn't get Subway. We got Jimmy John's. And it tasted like turkey to me. We have Wolfgang says, wow, 2021. Thank God for California. Yeah. Another one from Chris Wiseman says, hey, at Faith Joy, where was Robinhood's GC? He should have been standing right behind the computer and yanked the power cord after the first 15 seconds. Following that interview, if I were the GC, I would have given the board of directors an ultimatum. Either he stops talking or I quit. So I think what Chris is referring to is the general counsel for Robinhood. And I would agree with that. I mean, it was kind of a bad interview. It was something that I was like, is he going to answer anything? And he just kept kind of talking in circles, and it was very frustrating. It sounded like somebody said, hey, we don't have anything to say, so we need you to go in front of the cameras and just talk in circles all day. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. Very easy to do that. I'm just going to talk about the SEC and all of these obscure regulations that nobody knows anything about. And I'll just sort of keep referring back to those and say, I want to, address some of the misinformation that's out there over and over and over. And you got a 7-minute segment with this guy. So if you can just kind of draw it out for 7 minutes, you can escape without having to say anything of substance. We got Seiji Takahara. How about a massive class action to help save resources of the court? To just have a courtroom finally discuss election F-word, excessive executive action by the executive, desire of Democrats to conspire to pack the courts, and other severe issues such as the sudden loss of jobs and other things. So it sounds like what Seiji wants to do is utilize the same class action framework where you're consolidating a lot of individuals into a similar type of claim, a similar set of lawsuits. But in this case, he wants to just take all of the issues in America and throughout the world and consolidate them into one court proceeding. Seiji, it's a little too much for one proceeding. Got to break that stuff up. But I like where your head's at on that. Another one says, if a contract restricts something that is your right and their actions restrict your rights, which induces the natural reaction of breaking contracts that restrict something that is your right, is the contract valid? All these terms of service contracts include questionable items that have caused too much harm. And I think that there are some pretty serious problems with a lot of this user agreement stuff that people just sort of, press next on. Yes, agree. You got to agree to use this stuff. And, I think at some point these need to be addressed. They're too beefy. Nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. And so I would like to see a trend towards more sort of understandable user agreements that an average person can understand. Wolfgang Deo says, oh my God, is this how Civil War 2.0 starts? Gamestop? Could be there, Wolfgang. I hope not. Glenn Shelton says, my only problem is that once everything became a public nightmare, Clinesmith didn't step up to correct the record. So we had to endure all of this mess. Yeah, I agree with you. That is a problem. It seems like this is all, a little late. We're talking about this 4 or 5 years later. We spent tens of millions of dollars and a lot of political assets on this stuff. And I think it still is sort of unresolved. Isaac Castillo says, looks like Robinhood CEO is in desperate need of PR services provided by Sean Spicy Spice Spicer. Hashtag bring back the Spice Man and hashtag Wall Street Bets. I liked Sean Spicer a lot. I thought he was, he had a certain charm to him. So I think that would be a good move there, Isaac. Good idea. We have Sharon Quidney says, okay, so now we got Tuna Gate. Yeah. The entire system is just falling around us. It's a disaster. 2021 is going to be a long road, friends. What's next? What's in McDonald's? What's in Burger King? What's in the chicken that you get from your favorite chicken place? Is it really chicken? I don't know. Wolfie DeFriend says Subway jumped on the juice train. Contains 0% tuna. Yeah, 0% tuna. Morgan Burns says Subway needs to let us in on the recipe. Oh, that was so clever. Needs to let us in on the. We got Subway puns now coming out, which is great because it's Friday and it's about that time, and it looks like we're almost through with these super chats. Let's see what else we've got. We've got Beth Coddington says, I think that Subway lawsuit is just a fishing expedition. Bada boom. So she's got another one. So a fishing expedition in legal terminology is when you're just asking for everything and seeing what comes up. So what Beth here did very cleverly is used illegal terminology to imply that Subway was using a fishing expedition, kind of though they weren't, because they didn't have any fish, allegedly. So you see that? Multiple meanings. Very clever. Thank you for that, Beth. We have Wolfgang Deo says a class action party template's coming. So it's a little bit different. You know, somebody asked me about that on Twitter. They were saying, hey, can we do an impeachment type of template for other lawsuits, other litigation? And that is not something that I think is a good idea, right? You can have fun with an impeachment template because it's kind of meaningless. You know, it's just kind of one of those things that you can draft up, send to your Congress people. It's not going to go anywhere. They're not going to do anything about that. But when you start literally filing documents in a court of law, it's a whole separate ballgame. It's a whole separate can of worms that I wouldn't feel comfortable joking about. But it is, you know, it is certainly, I think, something that's going to happen anyways. If you are a class action plaintiff, if you're somebody who was harmed by Robinhood, you're going to get probably a lot of emails or notices, or you may see advertisements on Facebook or on the commercials, you know, on TV that are asking you to go and join the class action lawsuit. They're going to want to expand that class massively so that the settlement is big, because it's going to be necessary to compensate all of those people to some level. And you want, you know, a big class in order to get a big settlement. So I think a lot of those people, they're not going to need to start their own class action lawsuit. They just got to find a good lawsuit and join that class. Pinky number 2 says, sounds like some issue on both sides. The SEC has many ways to get agreements. Usually drop your case, but they regulate the financial advisors mostly. So some more good information from some other people like Pinky who've got some information, which is good because we could use that. Kenneth Slayer says, understandable legalese will make you unemployed. Yeah, Kenneth. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a need for attorneys. There's always going to be a need for criminal attorneys in particular. So I am actually more inclined to make things more decipherable for the general populace. I wrote a book on criminal law. I've had like 450 videos explaining criminal law in layman's terms, because I think if people understand it, they can make better decisions for themselves. And so I am more for transparency in law than I think some other lawyers who think of their legal education and their legal knowledge as sort of a gatekeeping device. In other words, if you pay them money, they'll give you the information. I understand that. I get it. How about I just give you the information? If you think I can do something with the information, you can hire us and then we'll execute the plan. It's worked well for us. People appreciate it. And our firm's doing well. We've got here from Chris Wiseman over on Locals. This is our last one. Subway, the Florida man of fast food trademark. Here you go. We got, folks, we have a Subway meme right now. This could be illegal. I don't know. The Department of Justice is now prosecuting people for memes. I just put one on the screen. Let's dive into this. This looks pretty real, you know, and this is the same thing that was happening with the other guy. His meme looked real and they didn't like that. So here we have a tuna, foot long, except it's almost a foot long. Almost. Not really, because it doesn't have to be. And it's tuna. A little bit of an asterisk right here. In smell and texture only. Thank you for that, Chris. Very, very good. Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. So if you want your 5.5-inch fake tuna sandwich, you can go grab that from Subway and enjoy it. That was our last Super Chat. So let's wrap it up for the day. I want to thank all of our new subscribers over on Locals. So as I mentioned at the start of the show, Locals.com is our platform where we post a bunch of cool stuff. We post I'll show you everything that we post over there. But if you want to participate on Locals, it's free to just join and watch and sort of observe the comments and download the materials that I'm going to share with you in a minute. But if you want to participate and support the show and communicate and comment and send messages and all that stuff, then you can subscribe for $5 a month. We have a bunch of new subscribers who went over there, and I want to thank GFF, Chairman of the Board. We've got Chairman of the Board's always here. We got Croconeo 1 Alpha. Crocone 1 Alpha. We got CLRO joined up. We got Jason Sagal. We've got Hain202, Scuba Babe in the house. We have Sherry Smith 1214, Jill Russin. We've got NY Renal MD. We got KK. We got Harry 1636. We got MLK, ML Kleisler, Chris Bean 101. We got Shaner Wright. We got Liberty or Death in the house. Just XUXA. Chris Owen joined up. We got Valerie W012, Josh Sasko, and ACWAC are all showing some love over on Locals, and that's very much appreciated. Thank you guys so much for joining up. It's humbling that so many people are just sort of going over there and wanting to participate. If you want to join, sign up over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can see the address down here at the bottom of the website. And this is what you get if you head on over there. And all this is free. You don't have to join up. You can get a copy of all the slides that are on there. We post the slides every day. Get a copy of the impeachment template. So you can just literally download the document, put your name in here, put the politician's name in there, and boom, you can impeach anybody you want. Be careful if you want to impeach your ex, because exes don't like that. You can also download a copy of my productivity system. It's called Existence Systems. These are PowerPoint. This is 2 PowerPoint slides that you can download, edit, modify those if you want to see how I use them and how they came about. Then you can check out our January 1st video, January 1st, 2021. I have a full video, full session on how I use this stuff. Links and conversation. There's awesome people over there, sharing links and commenting. And the real reason is all the people, the great people that are there. We want to see you over there so that we can continue to talk about these issues and build a little bit of a community and move the discussion forward. So I want to see you over there, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If we get over a certain number of subscribers, then we're able to unlock certain features. So at some point this year, they're going to start live streaming over there. We get more video capabilities if we get over 1,000 members. So if you just, if we just appreciate it, if you just went over there, you don't have to pay, just join our community and hang around. There's a lot of other cool communities over there that I spend some time, poking around myself. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. We'd appreciate it. Would also appreciate a subscribe if you have not already subscribed. We go live every single day of the week, Monday through Friday, and we want you to be here. I'd appreciate a like, a thumbs up, a share, a comment, invite somebody to come join us. That really helps the show grow, and it keeps the conversations interesting. We want to have people asking questions and joining in on the fun. Other than that, I want to remind you that I am a criminal defense attorney. I love what we do here. We have an awesome team of people who are very good at helping good people who've been charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope in their lives and in their cases. We just don't want to see them sort of ground up in the justice system. We want to help them get things back together and move forward. We are very excellent at what we do. We have a whole team of people here who just wake up and they're thrilled as hell to come and help other people navigate the system. And so if you know anybody who's in a position where they have an active criminal case, they have an old criminal case that they want to clean their record up a little bit, a restoration of rights to vote again or possess firearms again, we can help with that. If you got a mugshot you want to get cleared up, if you have an old warrant on an old case, we can clear that up. So anything and everything that's criminal law related in the state of Arizona, we can help. We'd be honored and humbled if you trusted us enough to send referrals our way. We'll take very good care of them. They'll leave our office better than they came in, and we'd just be humbled if you send them our way. So that's it for me. I want to thank you so much again for being a part of the show. It's been kind of a busy week, but we're looking forward to a nice weekend, a little bit of relaxation time, unplugging from politics, unplugging from the justice system, and we'll come back ready to rock and roll next week on Monday. Same time, same place. It's 5 p.m. Arizona time, which is Mountain, 4 p.m. on the West Coast in California, 6 p.m. Central in Texas, and then Florida Man, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. So I want to thank you once again for being here. Everybody have a tremendous weekend. Sleep well tonight. See you next week. Bye-bye.